Good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you to the July 11th, 2023 meeting of the Calvert County Board of Commissioners. At this time, I'd like to ask Pastor Knoll to come forward and give us an invocation, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Invite you to pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you that you are a spirit, that you are infinite and eternal and unchangeable in your being, wisdom, power, holiness, justice, goodness, and truth. Father, we thank you that you are Lord over all. We thank you that you appoint those in authority, and we thank you that you have appointed these commissioners and those that work with them. And Father, I want to pray particularly for them, that you will bless them in their labors. I pray that you will bless the deliberations that go on here as they manage all of the resources and the finances and zoning, as they deliberate over these issues, that you would bring unity in all of their decisions. I pray for equity and justice in all that they do. Father, I want to pray specifically for these commissioners by name. I pray for Earl Hance, for Todd Ireland, for Mark Cox, for Catherine Grosso, for Mike Hart. Father, I pray for their families, for them and their families, for protection, for health, for strength, for endurance. I pray, Lord, that they would know your grace for them as they deal with also with challenges in life and their families. Pray for as they struggle with struggles and Lord, as they wrestle with issues of health and all of their own personal family, we pray that they would know your love for them. Lord, we thank you for all of our first responders and all our public officials, and Lord, we pray you bless them as they go out each day and serve the public. And last of all, Lord, I pray for this community, Calvert County, Lord, that we would honor and hold and respect those in authority over us, that, Lord, you would get all the glory. We pray this, I pray this in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Knoll. And Pastor Knoll comes to us today from the Harvest Fellowship Church in Lusby. We really appreciate you coming up and joining us today. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda as presented?
None.
Motion to move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So I do have some public service announcements today. Most of you may recall the last time we met, we had some news that there might have been a fatality involved in a fire in St. Mary's County, and unfortunately that came to be true. So at this time, we would like to extend our sincere condolences to the family of firefighter Ross Trossback from St. Mary's County, who gave his life to protect property and life in St. Mary's County. Here in Southern Maryland, we're a small region, and the fire EMS service is a family. And, so when we lose one, doesn't matter whether it's in Calvert County or St. Mary's, it's all part of our family. And I think those of you that, if you've noticed, that day of his funeral, not only did the Southern Maryland region turn out to show their respect, but fire companies from around the state showed up, and outside of the state of Maryland showed up. He paid the ultimate sacrifice, and apparently in his life, he came from a firefighting family, and not only did he volunteer, but it was his paid career at the Naval Fire Station there in Lexington Park. So we certainly want to extend our condolences to the Trossback family for their loss. Bryce was 25 years old, engaged, had his whole life in front of him. And as I said that day, I spent 31 years there, and you just do it. You don't think about the danger that you face every day. You just do it because it's in your nature and it's in your spirit. And unfortunately, Bryce gave his life for what he loved to do. So we want to make sure that his family feels our sincere condolences and that we wish them all the best and keep them in our prayers. We also want to extend condolences to the Barry Greer family. Mr. Greer served Calvert County in various positions. He served on the Housing Authority for 12 years. His expertise and volunteerism to serve the citizens of Calvert County was certainly noticed by many, and he will be missed. So we want to extend our condolences to his family. I also want to remind everybody we are going through the zoning ordinance update, and those comments for the first part of the zoning ordinance rewrite are due July 21st, 2023. So if you have comments, please get those in. And we're in the middle of summer, and there is some heat that's going to be upon us this week. Want to make sure that those of you that, if you have any issues, make sure you reach out. You can go to the county website. You can sign up for an alert. If you need to go to cooling centers, if you go to the county website, you can find out where those centers are located. If you need transportation to get to those centers, please make a phone call. We will do our best to help you in your time of need. And that concludes all my public service announcements for today. The first item we have on the agenda is an award from the Employee Recognition Committee. Good morning, Lorraine.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Lorraine Joyner, Executive Administrative Assistant for the Department of Community Resources, here today as a member of the ERC to present a Team Excellence Award. Team Excellence Awards acknowledge employees who have excelled as a group, displayed cooperation and teamwork in support of a common goal, and produced exemplary results. Today, we're recognizing 6 Department of Finance and Budget staff members as the Check Fraud Response Team. I'm going to call the team members up by name, and can you please join the commissioners at the front? Robin Lynch? Okay. Lori Markham? Kim Money? Sherry Parker?
Good morning.
Diane Phelps? And Susie Sidner.
You guys want to line up right across the front?
Commissioners, this team has been part of a Herculean effort to get the county's bills and payroll delivered on time in the face of some pretty extreme challenges. In the fall of 2022, Calvert, Charles, and St. Mary's Sheriff's Office experienced a rash of check fraud cases. Checks were being intercepted from the U.S. mail and washed and altered, resulting in losses of thousands of dollars. One local nonprofit reported a one-day loss of over $70,000. During this period, the U.S. mail was probably not the safest delivery option, so over the course of the fall, accounts payable received numerous reports from local businesses and nonprofits about checks that never arrived. Diane Phelps, Lori Markham, and Sherry Parker handled the request to void, reissue, and mail replacements. Between July 11th, 2022 and February 17th, 2023, they processed about 227 voids and reissues. Robin Lynch and Kim Money handled the banking tasks related to stop payments and wire processing. Susie Sidner issued replacement paychecks for those individuals that received their paychecks in the mail, or didn't receive them in this case. It was truly a team effort. Many vendors opted to pick up checks in person. Accounts payable accommodated these requests. Between October 7th, 2022 and February 24th, 2023, the accounts payable team processed 2,523 pieces of priority mail in an effort to ensure safe delivery. Staff recorded tracking numbers for each item to provide a means to verify delivery. In addition to all of this, accounts payable handled a huge increase in workload resulting from the federally funded Emergency Rental Assistance Program, processing over $3.5 million in wire transfers and check requests for rental and utility assistance. And many of those landlords opted to pick up their checks in person. So, through all of this, this team and I can testify to this personally and why it means so much to me to be here to present this. They remained upbeat, optimistic, and helpful. Customer service never suffered. They deserve recognition not only for the volume of work they handle, but for maintaining a positive outlook during prolonged, difficult circumstances. The ERC is delighted to join the Board of County Commissioners in recognizing these exceptional coworkers for this successful collaborative effort. Thank you, Commissioners, for your continued support of the Employee Recognition Committee and for partnering with us to recognize Calvert County government's truly remarkable workforce. And thank you, ladies, for your wonderful attitude and your wonderful work ethic. And I think there are probably some other people that want to share.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sharon Strand, the Director of Finance and Budget. I want to thank the employees that are up here that you're presenting to for their effort in getting this, this check fraud issue in hand and moving forward with correcting measures. It wasn't just a local issue, it was a nationwide issue that we were having. And we still continue with the practices that we put in place now for vendors to pick up checks, employees to pick up their checks. So trying to eliminate as much fraud as possible within the county. So thank you all.
Anybody else? Well, I just want to say thank you, guys. There's none of us in this room have been touched by fraud, hadn't had your Facebook account hacked, your credit card. You know, you're like, I wasn't in Montana. I didn't buy a cheeseburger at Moe's. How did this happen? You know, I mean, I've been here the whole time, you know. One time we got hit, they said we were buying deck material down Tennessee. I'm like, I don't know how I made it down there and back, but you say I was there, huh? I mean, it's just, it's crazy. You know, and these people spend more time trying to figure out how to steal than work a job. You know, I always said if they put that energy there, you know, to use for good use God, what they could accomplish in this world, you know, and it's just, you know, you're still a thief, you know, and there's no nice way to say it, you know, it's just a despicable thing to just take from somebody else because you figured out some way to try to do it. So I want to thank you guys for trying to go the extra step to make sure that things get delivered the way they were supposed to. And we greatly appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
So the next item on the agenda is appointments. Ms. Britton?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Katie Britton, the Clerk to the Board of County Commissioners. You have one appointment today for the Gambling Permit Committee. Staff requests or appoints the Stuart Gibson and reappoint Eugene Farrell to the Gambling Permit Committee. Once that is appointed, you have 2 alternate vacancies will remain.
Thank you.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second that we appoint Stuart Gibson and reappoint Gene Farrell to the Gambling Permit Review Committee. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to consent. So before I read, we have a lot of consent today. Before I read these, every once in a while, I do like to remind the public, items under consent are those items that are pretty straightforward. Before we did consent in the agenda, a staff person would come in and read a memo, and we'd go through an ordeal to approve all these items. Every item that we get presented under consent. Every commissioner gets that ahead of time and all the background. If there are any questions, a commissioner can always ask that it be moved to new or old business for a fuller discussion in public. So, I'm going to start down this list of consent items. Item 1, Department of Parks and Recreation Program Open Space Grant Budget Adjustment for Tennis and Pickleball Courts in Dunkirk. Item 2, Department of Community Resources Fiscal Year 2024 Calvert County Family Network Agreement. Item 3, Department of Technology Services Approval of Multi-Year Contracts for Copiers and Printers. Item 4, Department of Finance and Budget Award Recommendation ITB 2023-040. Item 5, Department of Finance and Budget Award Recommendation RFP 2023-042. Item 6, Department of Finance and Budget Award Recommendation ITB 2023-003. Dunkirk Tennis Court Complex Construction. Item 7, Department of Public Safety Federal Fiscal Year 2020 State Homeland Security Grant Extension. Item 8, Department of Public Works, United States Geological Survey Joint Funding Agreement. Item 9, Department of Parks and Recreation, Chesapeake Hills Golf Course Liquor License. Item 10, Department of Parks and Recreation, Cooperative Wildlife Management Agreements. Item 11, Department of Community Resources, Fiscal Year 2024 Calvert County Family Network Agreement. Item 12, Department of Community Resources, Fiscal Year 2024 Calvert County Family Network Agreement, Calvert County Public School Home Visiting Hybrid for High-Risk Moms. Item 13, Department of Community Resources, Fiscal Year 2024 Calvert County Family Network Agreement, Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act Outreach and Enrollment. Item 14, Department of Community Resources, Fiscal Year 2024 Community Partnership Agreement. Are there any objections to those items presented under consent today?
I have none.
Hearing none, those items will be adopted as presented. That brings us to, new business. I've lost my agenda. Too many papers. First item under new business, Department of Parks and Recreation fee schedule update for calendar year 2024. Director, how are you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Shannon Nazal, Director of Parks and Recreation. And if you like, I could either read the memo or go right into the presentation.
Presentations.
You can just present.
Yes, sir. Okay. So this item is in regards to our fee schedule update for calendar year 2024. So these fees would go into effect January 1st, 2024. So a little bit of history on our fee schedule, that these encompass all fees charged for by Parks and Recreation for our services, programs, admissions, and rentals. In 2018, while we had charged fees previously, this was the first time that our revenue and fee policy was put into place, as well as the first approved fee schedule. In 2020, fees were added for field use and updated for community center rooms, and they were suspended due to COVID. And then in 23, the previously suspended fees were then reinstated, and then some modest fee schedule changes were approved also for calendar year 2023. So in operating Calvert County Parks and Recreation, in fiscal year 2023, our operating budget was just over $14 million with revenue of just over $4 million. So that means our operating budget consists of about 70% of general fund and 30% of revenues are from fees collected. In the past, we had revenues accounting for about 40 to 50% of the budget, but costs of operations, materials, and supplies have increased over the years. And after the audit of FY23, we will have a better idea of the revenue for those 2023 fees that were started for this current calendar year. So in good news, the fees that we have in place currently, they're more in line with the cost of operation. And also of interest to the public, field usage will always remain at no cost for youth sports providers with an approved agreement for what's within the county. And adjusting fees are in line with the board-approved revenue and fee policy and manual. So some of the changes that we are recommending for calendar year 24, again, January 1st of 2024, is a small adjustment to our daily camping fee, and adjustment rates for our adult softball league by $3 per game, and that is due to the cost of an increase to our officials, the cost that we pay for officials for those. Our other recommended changes in concessions and golf, we've updated our sample pricing and our fee schedule to be more accurate about what we are selling at those facilities, although the percentages of revenue on those has remained unchanged in the fee schedule. We have added fees for our golf course clubhouse, which will be coming online later this year for beverage packages for those that may wish to reserve the clubhouse for, say, a wedding or an anniversary celebration or something like that, where they can purchase a beverage package, whether alcoholic or non-alcoholic beverages per person. So we've added those into the fee schedule to be able to do that. We have increased our golf league rates by $3 per greens fee, and that is in line with other area courses and is still lower than our regular rates for those that are participating in our leagues. We have also adjusted our golf rates to separate the greens fees and the carts fees. That is more in line with other courses in the area to have a separate green and cart fee. That allows us to be able to have a lesser number of total fees that we have in our system to work with, and makes it easier for the public to understand what the fees are for different times of years that they're paying for a difference in that time of year or time of day, and they're not paying a difference in the cart itself for renting a cart. And then we are also moving to one size range bucket rather than having two sizes in range buckets, and that's more in line with not having to keep restocking two different size buckets, and that's cheaper in operations for us and makes more sense, and less fees, again, that we have to maintain within our point of sale. So when we are looking at our fee schedule in general, as well as any updates that may be made, we follow a tier system that is in our revenue and fee manual on what those programs or services may be, whether it's something that is meant to be just a general public service, if it's something that should be partial cost recovery, or something that should be complete cost recovery, or something that should be over cost recovery for a particular facility or program. We also benchmark our costs and the types of rates, like I mentioned with the golf course, with other agencies to ensure that we have a good pricing strategy. And overall, our goal is to get back to that 40 to 50% return for coverage of the entire Parks and Recreation operating budget. But that also includes the golf course and Breezy Point Beach to be fully self-sufficient. And I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Questions?
I think biggest challenge we talked years ago was minimum wage used to be $7.35, $7.50, something like that.
It wasn't that long ago.
Was not that long ago, and minimum wage now will be $15 come January 1.
We already pay over
That's what I was gonna say,
that
yeah.
now.
So, I mean, you're just labor cost is up over 100%. So, and that was going to be, I mean, that's just the way of the world. So,
Cost of chemicals have gone up, cost of materials and supplies have all gone up, yes.
Yep.
And the purpose of the fees is just to reduce the subsidize from
Right.
taxpayers for
Right,
those.
it's to reduce the impact on the general taxpayer,
Right.
yes.
Great. I know people don't like them, but Just part of doing business today.
Yes, sir.
How much did the softball officials go up per game?
I think it did go up that $3.
It's
And
$3,
that,
okay.
yes.
I'm good. We're good? Just me, sir, whoever.
I move, we approve the resolution adopting the calendar year 2024 fee schedule effective January 1st, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second that we approve the resolution adopting the calendar year 2024 fee schedule effective January 1, 2024. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next item on the agenda, or for new business, Department of Parks and Recreation Youth Mentor Grant Budget Adjustment. Morning, sir.
Morning. How are y'all today?
Good.
Thank you.
Give Shannon a break on this one, so I'll take the memo. Got Nate Smith, I'm the Recreation Division Chief, Parks and Recreation.
And again, Director of Parks and Recreation, Shannon is all.
All right, guys, subject to Youth Mentoring Grant Budget Adjustment. Background, the Department of Parks and Recreation, PNR, received a $70,000 cost reimbursable grant from the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, OJJDP, through the National Recreation and Parks Association, NRPA, to develop a youth mentoring program over a 2.5-year period to support youth affected by substance misuse in Calvert County. Discussion. PNR must provide NRPA with a signed copy of the provided Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, to receive the grant. The grant will be utilized to develop a youth mentoring program utilizing NRPA's youth mentoring framework to implement group and one-on-one youth mentorship and family engagement opportunities within PNR. The program will be operated through PNR community centers overseen by the Recreation Division staff. Fiscal impact. In compensation for services rendered pursuant to this agreement, the county shall be paid a total of $70,000 over the full grant period from July 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2025. The county will receive funds through a cost reimbursable model, submitting quarterly financial reports to the NRPA program officer that will contain an invoice, itemized transactions, and receipts for all expenses to NRPA. A budget adjustment in an amount of $70,000 is requested to support this program, which is fully reimbursable by NRPA. Conclusion recommendation, staff recommends that the Board of County Commissioners authorize the President to sign the attached Memorandum of Understanding and approve budget adjustment BA 2024-000012 for $70,000. Thank you for your consideration. I'll answer any questions if you have any.
So Nate, you want to just talk a little bit about what the program looks like so people understand what you're doing with the money?
Yeah, and so I'm very excited for this. I've been a part of Parks and Recreation 19 years, and this is our first opportunity to really put in a full-fledged mentorship program, and the $70,000 will certainly help us with that. So we're looking at hiring a program coordinator for this, and we're going to offer it in the northern, central, and southern areas of the county. And right now, I think our vision is to really hit the middle school ages, 10 to 13 years old. This seems to be an age that really needs something like this in Calvert County. So I've already met with Jen Moreland, and she's helping me out a little bit, pointing me in the right direction. And we're excited to get this going. I've got something due the 31st of July to NRPA. And then I've envisioned spring 2024 starting this program. We'll start recruitment of mentors and training by the end of this year. So
How many
very
kids-
excited for this opportunity.
How many kids can we handle, do you think?
As
we
many
can
as
get.
needed.
Good.
We
That's great.
we will handle as many that are interested, I promise you that.
Awesome.
And one thing that I would say too is I have to give some kudos to Nate and his staff. So I sent him the notice of this grant opportunity on a whim. I was like, hey, take a look at this and see if we can do this. And he took the bull by the horns and wrote the narrative, wrote the grant, put everything together, you know, rallied his staff together to come up with a really good program and was successful in getting the grant. And I'm just very proud of them for being able to get this done and to be able to offer this new program to the community that's much needed.
So what's the outreach program look like to get the word out so people know the program's going on?
We'll be utilizing press releases. I also intend on reaching out to public schools.
Counselors, yeah.
And utilizing them as a partner. Got to, that's a must. So,
Absolutely.
Sheriff Cox, he could be a resource for us as well. So we're gonna rally the community on this and make it happen.
Okay.
School resource officers will be on top of that
Yes,
as well.
sir. Yes.
Any other questions?
I like it.
Want a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I move that we approve and authorize the board president to sign the memorandum of understanding and approve budget adjustment BA-146.
Second.
Have motion and second that we approve and authorize the board president to sign the memorandum of understanding and approve budget adjustment BA-146. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you,
Thank you
Commissioners.
all.
Make it
Thank you.
as always.
Good luck with it.
All right. Thank you.
That brings us to item 3, Department of Public Safety, creation of Public Safety chapter in the County Code and proposed text amendments to Calvert County zoning ordinance. Chief Harris.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning. How are you?
Good, how you doing?
We haven't seen you in a while.
It's been a little bit. Stay in the basement.
Sometimes that's a good thing.
Communications Chief Stanley Harris with Emergency Communications.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rachel O'Shea, zoning planner with Planning and Zoning.
So Commissioners, are you okay with go ahead with the presentation, or would you like me to read the memo?
You might want to read the memo.
Sure. In July 2020, the jurisdiction over the addressing function for Calvert County was transferred from the Calvert County Department of Planning and Zoning to the Department of Public Safety's Division of Emergency Communications. The transfer of the addressing function to a new department has resulted in a gap in authority within Article 10 of the Calvert County zoning ordinance. Furthermore, the Department of Public Safety commissioned a 15-site P25 public safety radio system in 2021 that employs radio microwaves to facilitate communications between the 15 tower sites. Discussion. The circumstances necessitate the establishment of a public safety section within the Calvert County Code to address the departmental changes and safeguard the integrity of the microwave transmissions. The repeal of the current zoning regulations concerning addressing and subsequent adoption of amended regulations within the county code serve to realign addressing authority under the appropriate department while also providing necessary updates to the regulations. In addition, the microwave paths employed in the aforementioned radio system are susceptible to disruption caused by new construction. Such disruption may jeopardize reliable communications for first responders, rendering it essential to implement measures that protect the county's investment and guarantee dependable communication paths. Regulations must be implemented to ensure that any new construction causing an impact undergoes a review process. Fiscal impact, none. Conclusion and recommendations. It is recommended that the proposed amendments to the Calvert County zoning ordinance and the draft section of the Calvert County Code be reviewed and discussed, and that staff be directed to schedule a work session with the Planning Commission to initiate the public adoption process as a public safety exception allowed by Ordinance 19-23. So Commissioners, the purpose of this work session is to discuss the draft updates to the Calvert County Code, also to review and discuss the text amendment 23-01 to the Calvert County zoning ordinance needed to facilitate the creation of the new code, and discuss the need for microwave protection throughout the county. So as I mentioned, in July 2020, the addressing function moved from Calvert County Department of Planning and Zoning to Public Safety, and it also left a gap in the authority on who was able to enforce that with that change. So staff is proposing to remove the grid addressing number system and the display of address number sections from the zoning ordinance and place it in a new public safety section of the Calvert County Code. So the proposed changes to the zoning ordinance are to add reference to Chapter 95, Public Safety of the Calvert County Code for regulations regarding non-interference with emergency communications microwave system to the following zoning ordinance sections. Section 3-3.02, wind energy systems and communication tower and antenna regulation, general requirements. Article 5, residential development requirements, Section 5-1.11, height regulations for all districts. Article 6, non-residential development requirements, Section 6.2.02, height regulations for non-residential uses. Article 10, naming and renaming of roads and assignments of premise addresses. And then to remove the sections 10.1.02, grid addressing numbering system, and 10.1.03, display of premise address numbers. So essentially, Commissioners, we're taking the current zoning ordinance and we're just removing that from Article 10 of the zoning ordinance and placing it in Chapter 95 of the Calvert County Code. Minor changes were made to that to adjust or to address updated, for example, taking planning and zoning, renaming it to public safety. But those are the changes to the zoning ordinance, and I'll pause here before we jump into any microwave for any questions if you have any.
So, Chief Harris, back on one of your points, you talked about restrictions for wind turbines and interference with communications. The state has taken a lot of authority away from county local zoning when it comes to energy projects. So are we going to have issues with, or will the state listen to your concerns when it comes to emergency communications?
So those changes just reference Chapter 95 for the changes that were placed in Chapter 95. There was no actual changes to the wind energy communications tower section.
So I guess my question is not really related to the ordinance change but in general, you know,
So
when
the
it comes.
state does have the ultimate authority when it comes to where these types of projects will be placed. And that has to do a lot with the location, what's surrounding it, all of those variables for what makes it a viable project. The county will have input, and I think that the state does listen to that input because it is our community. You know, we're the experts when it comes to that, but they do have the ultimate decision whether if we're completely against it or for it or in between. They will listen to us, but they do have the ultimate authority when it comes to those projects.
safety.
Yeah, well, I'm just exercising a concern.
Absolutely.
Because, they've made it very clear that they don't want us to have anything to do with that. I just want to point out in this discussion that it's very important that they do listen when it comes to emergency communications and those type of items, and just make sure that the public and you all are aware that we need to make sure we let them know at whatever opportunity we have our concerns about locations.
We'll be sure if projects of that nature come up into us that we will bring in public safety to provide those comments.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So into the microwave path protection. So like I said, in 2021, we commissioned the radio system, and there's 15 tower sites as part of that system. So the radio system uses microwaves to communicate between the towers and is a line of sight communication. So if somebody was to build a building or anything along that path, it would disrupt those communications within those towers, and they would no longer work. We would lose our redundancy, or the whole tower could go down depending on where it was. So to protect the investment made by the county and to ensure reliable communications path, staff is recommending the creation of a public safety section of the county code that will address the microwave path protection. The new code would require all new construction along the microwave path to go under review. Any buildings being proposed above 80 feet would require a review by emergency communications to determine if it will impact a microwave path. If the new construction is determined to have no impact, staff would issue a notice to the builder that they may proceed. If during the review preliminary findings determine that the new construction will potentially have a detrimental impact, the builder will be required to provide an engineering study to confirm whether the structure will have a detrimental impact upon the system's microwave path or paths, and if so, the extent of the impact. And if it's confirmed to have an impact, planning and zoning and public safety would work with the builder to mitigate the impact. So possible mitigation strategies would be to move the building, along that path, move it out of the line of sight. Could also be to redesign or relocate the structure or the building that's being built, or negotiate with the county to find another option. So another option could be to put a repeater site on top of their building, and they could build where they're at. It could also be to move the microwaves on the towers at their expense. They could move them up or realign those. That way, we could still have reliable communications. But the whole point of this would be to make the builder responsible for that cost. So the county does not incur a cost because they want to build a building along one of our microwave paths.
Chief, let me ask something on that. So often we find, hey, I got in before this, I got in before that. Millions of dollars have been spent on this safety system. It is premium that nothing impedes it. Would this give you the right to say, hey, what you're doing is going to impact this safety thing, and no matter what mitigation you try, it won't work in this location? Will you have the ability to say no?
Yes, sir. Good answer, Chief Harris.
Yeah.
Look at the attorney.
Yes,
Because-
sir.
Okay, that's my concern, because we have seen, 300 years ago, blah, 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 well, things change, and analog system went away, and this was millions and millions of dollars, and it's saves lives. There's no disputing, this system had to be in place, and it's a mandated system, had to be in place. So I just want to make sure we had that protection.
So, if we did put a repeater site on top of one of these buildings, who would be responsible for maintaining that?
The builder.
The building.
The builder is responsible for maintaining it to our requirements.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what really stemmed this was the administration building. That building's not too far off from one of our microwave paths. And when I saw that, it kind of threw a red flag, and I started looking around the state and found other jurisdictions that had similar ordinances and said, we need to get something like this in place here. We spent a lot of money and built probably one of the best systems in the state. We want to maintain that.
Chief, would they have to bond that, so to speak? So let's say, okay, you know where I'm going,
Yep.
right? Place went out of business, and they go, well, whatever. Okay,
Yes, the code does have a requirement for the bonding of the building and maintenance of that system.
gotcha.
What's the current height restriction in the building code?
It's variable depending on where you are in the county. It's
More
different
than
from
80 feet?
outside of, huh?
You can put a building up more than 80 feet?
No, but towers have different height restrictions as compared to a building.
Yeah, the 80 feet caught my eye, and I didn't think you could build an 80-foot building currently in Calvert County.
No, but we have a separate article for just tower construction, and we have, depending on what type of tower it is, they each have their different height restrictions, which are much higher than our building restrictions.
Because what, the current height restriction in the tallest part is 5, is it 5 or 3?
For towers or buildings?
The buildings.
Buildings,
I thought it was 3.
3 stories?
3 stories.
Yeah. So what does that work out to in feet?
Like 60, right?
What do you allow for,
It's
I thought it
30
was-
feet.
It was 30.
yeah, that's what I thought, it was
Okay.
10, but I just wanted to be sure. Yeah. Any other questions?
So,
So do we need to take this buildings out? That says any buildings being proposed?
The previous slide.
Yeah, go back one slide.
Next slide. There we go.
Yeah, any buildings being proposed above 80 feet.
So I guess that language is in there in case the height restriction were increased?
It's a possibility. I don't know if we want to maybe change it from buildings to include tower construction as well, but
Any structures being.
any structure?
Any structure?
Any structure, yeah.
maybe we should change it to structures instead of buildings.
Understood.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because anything could block it.
Yes,
Doesn't
sir.
necessarily have to be a building. Anything else?
So
Second.
Commissioners, we're just looking for approval to move forward in the adoption process and take this to the planning commission.
Motion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I make a motion that, I'm sorry, just lost my place. I do apologize.
You can just make a motion. I'll
Yeah,
take it.
move to approve. How about that?
Second.
I have a motion and a second that we find that protection of the microwave communication path warrants an exemption to ordinance 19-23 and direct staff to schedule a work session with the planning commission to initiate the public adoption process. That was your motion, correct?
It was.
Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to item 4 under new business, Department of Finance and Budget, fiscal year 2024 Health Department salary stipends. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Sharon Strand, the Director of Finance and Budget.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Chad Thomas Cuddy, Deputy Health Officer, Calvert County Health Department.
I'll go ahead and read the memo. Background. Public agencies provide vital services that are generally not available or not sufficiently available through the private sector. Among the areas in which the Calvert County Health Department CCHD functions in this respect are behavioral health services, infectious disease control, and emergency preparedness. State salary rates that determine CCHD employee compensation are insufficient in certain critical areas. This has led to vacancies and high staff turnover in some essential positions. There is precedence both in Calvert County and other Maryland counties for local governments to augment local health department pay for key positions. During the next 4 fiscal years, CCHD has funding through the CDC that can be used to cost share health department stipends with the Calvert County government. The Health Article 2-302 of the Annotated Code of Maryland states that each county provides funding to support its local health department. In fiscal year 2009, excluding money specifically dedicated to Safe Harbor, the CCHD received $2,365,288,000 from Calvert County government. That dropped to $2,201,306 in the wake of the recession of fiscal year 2011. County funding has not increased since. In 2009, were adjusted for inflation, fiscal year 2003 CCHD funding would total $3,226,846. The CCHD is now receiving $136,920 less than it received 15 years ago, and $1,025,540 less than its 2009 allocation in inflation-adjusted dollars. Discussion. Currently, CCG pays stipends for 2 CCHD positions. Some local governments extend supplements to multiple health department positions. The CCHD will receive a 4-year workforce development grant. It is proposed that the Calvert County government match a portion of CCHD grant funding, roughly 40% of the cost for the next 4 years, to provide supplements for key CCHD positions and allow improvements, recruitment, and retention. After the grant period ends, CCG will pick up the full cost of the supplements. Fiscal impact. The combined CCG stipend for 19 CCHD positions will be $256,500. These stipends should be adjusted in line with future salary increases afforded to CCG staff. It is proposed that CCHD fund $150,000 towards this cost for each year for the next 4 years, which is fiscal year 2024 to fiscal year 2027, with the CCG funding the remainder during these 4-year periods, and for fiscal year 2024 is $106,500. The CCG already provides one of these employees a $5,000 annual stipend, so there will only be a $101,500 in additional expense for fiscal year 2024. The CDC workforce grant available to CCHD expires in fiscal year 2027. It is further proposed that the CCG assume fiscal responsibility for funding the stipends in full beginning in fiscal year 2028. Conclusion recommendation. Staff recommends that these stipends be increased in fiscal year 2024 budget in the amount of $101,500 through a budget adjustment, which will increase the Health Department county contribution spend category and increases our interest and dividends revenue category.
Sir, you are. Anything you'd like to add?
Champ Thomas, Cuddy, Deputy Health Officer at Calvert County Health Department. One, I'd like to thank you for hearing us on this issue. We've had a legacy of bringing in young recruits fresh out of school, whatever their training may be, training them up, then they go on to greener pastures. In the past, we could cope with that because there was a workforce population out there to replace. What we're finding now is that workforce capacity isn't there anymore, so we're being pinched. People are still being recruited away that we've trained to serve this community, and it's leaving us exposed in many of our divisions. Not only are we not getting replacements for those roles, it squeezes us at the leadership positions. People who have had experience, trained, understand the community, understand the processes in order to meet the specific needs of their programs. And so we get pinched on the upper side too. This is basically a Band-Aid to keep our leadership teams in there, so we have folks that can mentor people, can train them, develop them to provide proper service to the community. We're still working with state government to sort of fix some of the gaps because they're not applying decision-making equally across all skill groups. And that's why we need this to be put in place.
You kind of touched on what my mind, and this is not new, right? What's frustrating is the state of Maryland acknowledges the gaps all the time, but they never put anything in place to fill the gaps. And then it always trickles down to the counties. And this is, right here, this is where it's most impactful. I mean, these are the people that are working with people today. So it impacts us on a very personal, local level. But yet next year we'll be here again. And the following year, and I don't understand, even in Blueprint, they addressed mental health, the need for the mental health, teachers and things of that nature. So they address this across the board, and substance abuse and all this stuff, but then that's it. And Maryland even had a surplus last year, I believe it was, or so, and still. So I would love to know what Maryland's priority is on this. I mean, they say it, but then they never come back to it. And then, like I say, when you're looking at the gaps, I mean, there's some significant gaps. And the only solution they say is just push it down. And so
We can't push it down anymore. There's
right,
no one
there is
there.
no,
There's no one there to bring in.
yeah, this is as bottom as it gets. There's no place
And
for it.
I'll repeat it. The biggest challenge, well, the long-lasting challenge is if we're not able to retain people, we don't build a knowledge base. We don't retain institutional knowledge. We don't have someone that's going to walk down the path with a new employee. And that puts us in a weak position.
Well, you bring up a good point, and that's with all walks of life. Anymore, we put somebody in a job, and they understand the verbiage, but they don't know the position. And it's so obvious every time that there's anything that's outside the box. And let's face it, in life, not everything is going to be as simple as 1, 2, 3. And all of a sudden, all they know how to do is go back and go, well, step 1 says this, step 2 says this, but they don't know the position. And that's that institutional knowledge of being in these things, saying, no, I've seen this before, and this is, they used to say the state or federal government says what we can't do, but let's see what we can do. And that piece is gone now because new recruits, they don't know what you can do. And so, it all starts at the top. I mean, state of Maryland has not put a premium on retaining these positions. And like I say, just shuffling to other jurisdictions doesn't fix the problem. So they don't, to coin a phrase of a former colleague, globally, I think they missed the ball.
you have? Anybody?
No, I'm good. So we did get clarification, and we dropped one position, added two, so,
They had some vacancies in there.
yes.
So while we have an opportunity, just for clarification for the public, it's called the Calvert County Health Department, but you all are state employees.
Correct.
You are a state agency, because we get complaints all the time, and when we tell them that you don't work for us, they all say, what's the Calvert County Health Department? Well, it's called the Calvert County Health Department, but you all are state employees, you operate under state rules and guidance.
Correct.
And as Commissioner Hart has alluded to, the state's not paying enough salaries to maintain its employees, and you have to come to the county to get supplemental money for salaries,
That's
which is a very sad state of affairs. And we clearly recognize the issue that you face. I do find it interesting in the agreement that even if the state does raise your salaries, the stipends stay. Not that that's going to happen.
Right.
Don't worry, I'm not dreaming, I'm not drunk. That's not going to happen. But we do understand the situation that you're in, and I believe we're going to help you. But it's a sad state of affairs, no pun intended, that the state won't take care of its own employees.
Not to belabor the point, but we're not stopping with this attempt because there are a lot of positions that still need to be addressed. And so we're pushing Maryland Department of Health, DBAM, Department of Budget and Management, and the Office of Human Resources to make it more equitable. Ultimately, we're serving the public, and we need a well-trained, enthusiastic workforce to do that job well.
And if you're having to retrain, that's costing more money at the end of the day as well, so.
And just to reemphasize, it's not the only county doing this. Other counties are having to do the same thing. So before I get the phone call, we're not
Quite a
doing
few.
this alone.
Quite a few counties do this.
Right. And I think a year before last, we had to do this for some other employees in your agency.
The previous, which was very helpful, we worked something out with our environmental health team. We were coming close to a point where we would not be able to process a single permit. And
Right.
that impacts a lot of people from an income standpoint, businesses, as well as people in
Well,
their
because people don't
homes.
understand, it goes to you first. They all think that, like, that permit's sitting here. No, it's there first, then here, and if there's no one over there to process it, it doesn't make it here.
And those permits aren't things we do by choice, they're mandated by state law. And so there's a process, we're following regulations, and if there's not a body in that position, nothing happens to it. So if you need a septic tank repaired, it's gonna sit. If you wanna put in a pool, it's gonna sit.
Well, basic stuff like a well, and things like that. I mean, basic, like you say, septic and a well, like drinking water or facilities for septic, it's gotta move off that desk, and it's not as simple as anybody there, because going back to what we said, you walk out to a site, it's on a cliff, it's on a hill, it's so many different mitigating situations.
And as we've discussed, your home is probably the biggest single investment you'll make in your entire life. It's where you raise your family, where you hope it's safe, you want clean drinking water, you want to get rid of your wastewater, and that needs to be done in a proper way. And so that particular team, we had people recruited over half the team away from here, and there was nothing we can do. And that's another group that has really not a pool of applicants coming in, because not a lot of people want to.
Yeah, not too many kids are going, when I grow up, I want to do this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we also have a workforce development challenge ahead of us too, which we're trying to do, telling people, because those folks, they have a scientific background. It's not just wanting to play in the dirt, you need to know what's in the dirt. And that takes some training, and we have to let folks know, this is an opportunity for you. If you like to be outside, hey, consider this. You like biology, this is something that can be for you. And that's legwork. So that's part of the challenge we're having to take. With that career path, as well as others, nursing, social workers, even administrative tasks, our biggest challenge has been recruiting fiscal staff.
Does the state help you with recruiting? Do they have a recruitment program that trickles down to the counties?
They have a recruitment program, it doesn't really trickle down.
Okay.
And so while they coordinate our state recruitment, it's up to us to go find people, broadcast, do that extra step to find folks that want to serve this community. It could be people that are viable that live in Baltimore. They don't want to come here. They may not understand this community, so it may not be a good match. yes, there might be someone out there, but are they gonna be a fit? Are they gonna stay here? It's a big investment to onboard somebody, retain them, develop a rapport, develop institutional knowledge, and then to see them leave after 13 months because they don't like the commute, or they want to live in a high-rise apartment building and they don't care about who you are. There's just different things. People want what they want. And so it all factors into who we can recruit and retain.
Questions, actions?
Motion?
Sure.
Mr. President, I move that we increase the stipends in the FY 2024 budget in the amount of $101,500 through a budget adjustment, which increases the Health Department's county contribution spend category and increases interest and dividends revenue category.
Second.
Have motion and a second that we approve the budget adjustment FY 2024-00005 in the amount of $101,500. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good day. That brings us down to a presentation. Mr. County Attorney. Didn't session just end?
Does seem like it was just yesterday. John Norris, County Attorney. I'm joined.
By Commissioner Catherine Grasso.
Thank you. I'll read the memo. Commissioner system is the oldest form of government in Maryland. The county's governing body under this form, the county commissioner, derives from the old levy system established shortly after the American Revolution. All the legislative and executive powers of the county commissioners come from the state legislature that are approved by the governor. Consequently, county commissioner counties only have those powers specifically granted to them and those implicitly needed to exercise those powers. Because the Board of County Commissioners only have those powers specifically granted to them, it is important that the commissioners consider those powers they would like to have in the future and request them from the General Assembly and the governor. The board has also asked that we invite the public to submit requests for state legislation for the FY24 session of the General Assembly. Those requests that are supported by the majority vote of the Board of County Commissioners will be presented to the state legislation, to the senators and delegation representing the county. So the fiscal impact is obviously going to be indeterminable until we get to that point. There are a number of public requests that have already come in. If somebody in the public would like to submit a request for state legislation, it's Calvert County, CalvertCounty.gov/legislative requests, if you'd like to submit a request for consideration by the board. So I'm going to get started with the legislative process. The General Assembly in Maryland consists of two separate but equal chambers, the House and the Senate. When there is a need to change the law or add a new law, the requesting party consults the state legislator to request the legislator to sponsor the idea. And once the idea is sponsored, a bill is drafted and filed by the sponsor. If the bill is drafted by the Senate, it's given an SB, Sam Baker designation in front of the bill number. Likewise, if a bill is sponsored in the House of Delegates, it has an HB designation. The same bill is submitted through both chambers. It's considered or classified as a cross-filed bill. And after a bill is assigned a number, it has to pass each phase of the legislative process to reach the governor's desk for signature to become law. So let's look at the first chamber, that is where the bill is filed, and look at that process in particular. The House of Delegates and the Senate, either one of them could be considered the first chamber, depending on who asked for the bill. So the bill has to pass both chambers to become law, and only a senator or a delegate can introduce a bill. Only a senator can introduce an SB bill, a Senate bill, and only a delegate can introduce a House bill, an HB bill. Once introduced, the bill is read by the reading clerk and assigned to its committee. If the committee approves the bill, it returns to the full chamber for a vote in the second and third readings. And once the full chamber approves the bill, it then moves over to the other chamber. So if you have House Bill 1 has gone to committee and come back out with a favorable report, it gets voted on at the House floor. If it passes by a majority vote, it goes over to the Senate, retaining its designation as House Bill 1. If Senate Bill 1 is the companion bill and they say the same thing, it starts off in the Senate, it goes to a Senate committee, the Senate committee votes it out favorably, it comes back to the Senate floor. If it gets a passing vote, it then goes over to the House, and it still retains its designation as Senate Bill number 1. So now we're at the second chamber. In the second chamber, the bill is viewed by the opposite chamber. The crossover bill is then assigned to the committee that is responsible for that subject matter in the second chamber. And if the committee in the second chamber approves the bill, it returns to the full committee, or full chamber for vote. If the full chamber approves the bill, it returns back to the first chamber. So you'll often see that House Bill 1 has been what's called return passed. That means that the Senate has heard the bill, they've had it through their committee, they've had it back to their chamber floor, and it's been passed. You'll also find that there are amendments. Those amendments, we'll look at the next phase of this. If those amendments are accepted when it comes back to the first chamber, there is no need for a conference committee. If those amendments are not accepted by the first chamber, then there is typically a conference committee that is the chairs of the committees that heard it in the two chambers, and another delegate and another senator typically try to reach resolution to address what the difference is between the bill that was sent over and the bill that came back. Now, if both the House and the Senate approve the same version of the bill, either through conference committee or just through having voted it through, it goes on to the governor. And the governor must sign it into law, or at least not veto it, because if the governor does not veto a bill within 30 days after the session ends in April, then it automatically becomes law by operation of the state constitution. So that's how a bill becomes a law in the state of Maryland, and that's true of public local laws that dot the front end of our county code that are adopted in Annapolis. It is also true of the state laws that are effective everywhere throughout the state, or in specific areas, depending on the bill, that are in the red books. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Grasso to tell us what happened.
Thank you. What is the Maryland Association of Counties, MACO, and what do they do? MACO is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that promotes effective, efficient government through advocacy, education, and collaboration. MACO also has several committees with focused interests where members of the Board of County Commissioners participate, including the Rural Counties Coalition. Session highlights MACO initiatives. Each year, MACO's Legislative Committee meets to set 4 goals for the upcoming legislative session. For 2023, those initiatives were body-worn cameras, cannabis, firefighters, and education. County initiatives, length of service award program, LoSAP amendments, HB 1178/CH789. This request of the Board of County Commissioners sought to enhance the LoSAP benefits for volunteer first responders. The requested modifications include change the LoSAP burial benefits to death benefit and increased benefit from $6,000 to $10,000 for a qualified volunteer who has completed 25 years of certified service. Increase the burial benefits from $240 to $336 for each year of certified service. Increase the LoSAP line of duty death benefit, which is already an additional benefit notwithstanding any other benefit received, from $6,000 to $10,000, and authorize the county commissioners to increase the benefit amount for all qualified individuals by a cost of living increase that corresponds with that given to county employees. And this legislation went into effect on July 1st, 2023. Okay, county initiatives. Enforcing civil citations, HB 1174/CH788. This request of the Board of County Commissioners, supported by the state's attorney, creates efficiencies in the enforcement of civil citations for things like civil animal cruelty, sale of tobacco products to minors. And this legislation went into effect July 1, 2023. This county initiative lets minor things like the animal cruelty and sale of tobacco products to minors to go straight to the courts. So it doesn't tie the courts up like other crimes do, or infractions. Okay, local preference, HB 1177. The board sought enabling legislation to discuss locally the adoption of a local preference for county-issued contracts. Despite the efforts of the board president, who met with the committee chair and the local business community's written report, the House committee did not vote the bill out of committee before the General Assembly adjourned. Meetings are scheduled with House leadership and stakeholders to seek better outcomes this coming session. And there's broad support in the chamber for this bill. Gambling admissions and amusement tax, HB 1184. The state has not allowed Calvert the same admissions and amusement tax paid in other counties. This request would have increased revenues available for park development by equalizing the admissions and amusement tax paid in Calvert County with that paid in other counties. And at this point, we're 2% shy of what other counties are receiving. This bill was the subject of considerable lobbying against it and was not voted out of committee before the General Assembly adjourned. Study the wages of education support professionals, and this was a statewide initiative. HB 1234/SB 735. The Board of County Commissioners has committed to recognizing the value of education support professionals when building its budget. That includes cafeteria staff, teacher aides, janitorial staff, etc. This legislation would have created a work group to study the wages of education support professionals, to study increasing the wages of education support professionals to attract and retain skilled workers. Though the Senate bill crossed over to the House, neither bill was passed out of the House committee. The county commissioners carried through on its commitment to fund salary increases for education support professionals despite inaction at the state level. Blueprint Coordinator Funding, HB 1196. This is the Kerwin Blueprint, which required each school system to appoint jointly with its county an individual to oversee and coordinate the local implementation of the multiple programs and outcomes of the Blueprint Plan. The county commissioners and Board of Education agreed this position could be filled with existing staff. HB 1196 was introduced to require the state to provide $150,000 in funding for the creation of this position in each county. The House amended version still requires a dedicated position at an added cost, but splits this funding responsibility between the state and county by a wealth-adjusted formula. The bill passed both chambers.
So we're looking at the schedule going forward. We started a campaign with the help of the communications and media relations folks to open the door to the public to submit legislative requests. Again, that web address is calvertcountymd.gov/state legislation. We're going to close that door on August 11th. On August 22nd, we intend to propose those requests or present those requests to the Board of County Commissioners. We're not asking for a decision on that date. We will request a position on September 12th, come back on October 17th. That date has now been confirmed by all the senators in the delegation for this presentation of those that are supported by the full Board of County Commissioners. We're doing early this year because there is a November 1 of 2023 deadline to pre-file bills. If our delegation or our senators are so inclined, they can pre-file our bills. It is important to get all of the House bills and Senate bills filed by the first week of February, because after that, if you miss that deadline, you go to rules and you wait to come out. And we found quite often that we're having to wait till sine die to see if some of our bills have come back from other chambers and whether or not they've been passed. So we're going to ask that some of the important bills get pre-filed. The local preference, we are going to resubmit the request for panhandling, and hopefully in a better fashion with more guardrails that'll satisfy the delegation. And then January 10th is the first day of the 2024 session of the General Assembly. April 8th is the last day of that session where they adjourn sine die. There was some questions about whether or not there would be a special session of the General Assembly to address gun violence this year before January 10th. I saw reports in the Daily Record that the governor has rejected that proposal and is not intending at this point to call a special session of the General Assembly. So we're still looking, December 10th should be the first date they meet. If anyone wants to check out how some of their other bills did in zoning or gun control, there are additional slides that are available on the county website. Didn't feel it was prudent to take all of the board's time today.
Well, first of all, I want Commissioner Grasso as our representation to the Legislative Committee for MACO, and I want to thank her for her efforts, because I know it involves a conference call on Monday evenings and then meetings on Wednesdays, sometimes every Wednesday, sometimes not. But we do appreciate you representing us in Annapolis. So
Thank you.
it's an extra effort on your part, and we do appreciate it. And it's important. I think that this year we did open up the public process for submission of legislation. We'll see what comes in. Take those requests and consider those, have a decision by September. Most of you probably already know, we're a small county. We share a lot of delegates and senators. In fact, we share all of our senators with other counties, and that does sometimes create some complications with legislative issues where a representative majority of his district is in another county and we have opposing views on legislation. It puts them and us in a little bit of a difficult position. But for the most part, we have a very good delegation working on our behalf, and want to make sure that we continue that relationship. And just an observation of my own, it does appear in recent years it's harder to get local legislation passed than it used to be. It used to be that if it was just something local that just pertained to you, it was pretty much, it went on through with no issues. I think what we've seen the last couple of years is that now the legislative body has taken a more broader view, and impacts or perceptions that they have come into play, and our local bills don't just flow through anymore. So we we're learning that we're gonna have to work harder to get our bills through. And, gonna require more participation from citizens in some cases that support our issues to get them involved in the legislative process in Annapolis. So, does anybody have any other questions or comments? We just wanted to do this presentation today, kind of kick off the process so people understand that it's going to be more open this year and lay out a schedule so you know what's coming and when. And again, want to thank Commissioner Grasso for her efforts and the county attorney. We don't have a legislative designee. We use our county attorney to do our legislative work, so we appreciate the extra effort on his behalf also. It's tracking a lot of different bills during session is a task. That's not easy sometimes. A lot of things change. Those of you that aren't involved in the process, it can be very time consuming, and as he mentioned in his presentation, sometimes you don't know until the very last minute if your bill is going to make it to the floor or not. And so we do appreciate all your efforts too, Mr. Attorney.
Thank you both.
So with that, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that will bring us to public comment. Mr. County Attorney.
I've been informed that the camera will be turned away from me and the microphone muted. Mr. Norris was very reasonable and professional in his tone toward me when he informed me of that. However, when I asked him, he said elected officials had decided this. Now, I have First Amendment rights.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Katie Blevins, and I'm speaking for myself.
He has to do his procedural.
Sorry, I have to do my little speech before things get started. So we have opened the floor to public comment. I saw there was one person who's joined us virtually. If you wish to speak, please press star 9 or use the raise your hand function. The Board of County Commissioners adopted a resolution 6-89 that covers meetings and intended to maintain the order and decorum of the public process. Commissioners also have adopted resolution 51-20 that requires persons addressing the board will not be permitted to make statement or remarks that concern only private activities, lifestyles, or beliefs of others, including individual employees of the county or its elected officials, unrelated to the business of the Board of County Commissioners or the professional duties and performance of its employees or the employees of its elected officials. Persons addressing the board shall identify themselves by name and address and shall refrain from statements, remarks, or conduct that is uncivil, rude, vulgar, profane, or otherwise disruptive to the conduct of the board's business. Any person making such prohibited statements or remarks may be removed from the meeting room. And the Ethics Commission has asked us to remind those that speak in public comment that lobbyists are those that include those that seek to influence public policy, and lobbyists must register in advance. If you are speaking as an individual, you will be allocated 2 minutes, or as the designated representative of a group, you'll be allocated 5 minutes.
My name is Katie Blevins, and I speak for myself. I have First Amendment rights. The truth is not uncivilized. Therefore, that policy does not apply to me or anything I've stated or plan to state. Moreover, I have not been rude, vulgar, profane, or otherwise disruptive to the conducting of the board's business. I'm telling the truth. So now I'm going to get into my speech. My name is Katie Blevins, and I speak for myself. I've been going up against this corrupt system since April of 2018. Commissioner
Darrell,
Hart.
would you please mute the microphone? Thank you.
Your response to me at the last meeting that you would prefer speaking one-on-one as if I am the coward in this situation indicates you don't want your cover-up documented and made public. Commissioner Hance, you acknowledge the personnel issues I mentioned. So both of you indirectly said what I'm saying is true. And I thank y'all for that.
That's not what I said.
Clear, this has nothing. Please
It's not what I
address me
said.
with your comments at the end, sir. Excuse me?
Go ahead, continue.
I'll wait for your comments.
Go ahead, continue.
That's sufficient, thank you. Mr. Cormier has raised his hand to speak.
Okay, I want to be clear, this has nothing to do with the new superintendent or new sheriff. They're here to clean up the messes their predecessors made. I'm here to talk about a pedophile ring and child sex trafficking in Calvert County, of which Calvert County Schools has long been
Ma'am,
part.
that's more than enough. Thank you. by Zoom? Mr. Cormier? Mr. Cormier, can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Joseph Cormier, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I'm going to speak from home today and keep the funk with me instead of sharing it with you. I would just like to take a moment to share the CCAG book study information. We hope reimagining special education using inclusion as a framework to build equity and support all students by Jenna Rufo and Julie Costin. Sessions will be weekly for 4 weeks from 12 to 1 p.m. on July 27th, August 3rd, August 10th, and August 17th. Please email ccac@calvertnet.k12.md.us for more information. For all parents, guardians, and community stakeholders, if you're interested in volunteering with a school this year, please watch the volunteer training video and fill out the volunteer application on the school's website. I encourage you to do that sooner rather than later because it takes up to 2 weeks to be approved, so don't wait to the day of the field trip you plan on chaperoning. All existing approvals expired on June 30th. New applications need to be completed for any future volunteering. I encourage all parents to join the PTA, PTO, FSO at your child's school, whether you can volunteer once a week or once a year. Being part of the organization allows you to be part of your school's community, whether it's a lunchroom monitor, playground volunteer, shelving books, mentoring, tutoring with sports. It's the best way to pass on your experience and knowledge to the next generation. And lastly, I'd like to thank the BOCC and the BOE for working together, for working together to create a budget that is funded and creates a pathway to support all education support professionals. Your continued support in the coming school year is very much appreciated. Union strong. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. State's Attorney, did you have any public comment? No. Mr. President, that is all.
Thank you. That brings us to Commissioner reports. Commissioner Cox.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope everyone had a wonderful 4th of July celebration. Attended a fundraiser and car show at Huntingtown High School. Mr. Johnny Brooks put on a wonderful show up there. We do have another one, Mount Zion Church, this weekend at Calvert High School fundraiser and car show. And I would like to keep the Whittington family and the Lamb family in your prayers for loss of loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Arlen.
I also hope everybody enjoyed their 4th and enjoyed the fireworks. I heard both fireworks celebrations. I heard a lot of positive comments from both. And they got to spend some time with family there. On the 8th, Calvert County High School class of 1958 had their class reunion. I had the opportunity to speak with several of them. It wasn't a very large class, and that puts most everybody that was there above the age of 80. So unfortunately, with every year that goes by, they're losing more and more. But it was great to see all of them get together to celebrate their then only Calvert County High School reunion. That's all I had.
Very good. Commissioner Grasso.
On June 29th, I attended the Tri-County Zoom meeting, and they did not have a quorum, so nothing was voted on that evening. And on July 8th, I attended the Chesapeake Beach fireworks. They were great, and as usual, our Public Works employees did a great job.
Thank you. Commissioner Hart.
I want to thank Kyle Weber for once again making sure that the fireworks took place down in Solomon's. Something that he grabbed a hold of a while back, and once again made it better and better. And I want to thank our video group for having that available on YouTube. That was great for people that didn't get a chance to go out and see the fireworks to still see. Great job by that team. So, and that's it, Mr. President.
Thank you. So I too want to thank county staff that worked over the holidays, road staff that put out safety cones, deputy sheriffs that worked traffic safety, and broadcasting the fireworks live was a good idea. People got to see it that couldn't get out. I just want to remind everybody that, as I mentioned earlier, we are in the middle of summer, and if you have heat-related issues, please reach out. The website can direct you to information that may help you. If we have extended heat, there may open cooling centers or their availability to go to community centers, please go to the website. It will direct you to those resources. Other than that, I have nothing else. Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we move to recess to executive session pursuant to general provisions, Article Section 3-305B, 3B, 4, B7, and B8 to consider the acquisition of real property for a public purpose and matters directly related to acquisitions, consider a matter that concerns a proposal for a business to locate, expand, or remain in the state, consult with counsel to obtain legal advice, and consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation.
I have a motion and a second that we move into executive session. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you.